Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Morgan-Berge and I'm your host. I'm the author of 12 books, CEO of 12 years, the founder of a startup set on data privacy, most importantly, an elite performance coach of over 18 years, having worked with athletes throughout Europe, the United States to Australia. Most excitingly, I am the world's leading scientist on coach and athlete performance, specifically behind how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking. My work includes everything from mitigating injuries to conditioning behaviors that set a player up long term for the long game towards a top 10 tennis ranking. I'm behind theories from the optimal performance theory, optimal behavior for optimal performance, the barrier breaker, the rule of transference to the golden rule. As has become custom, each episode we dive into the latest rankings and results on the WTA and ATP tours and deliver new data implications as shared in my latest release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking. Today's insights and key topic plays its own role, like so many other episodes, in developing the player, parent to coach for that road ahead towards a top 10 tennis ranking. So, as always, buckle in and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've been with us for some time now, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you are new, as always, I really would encourage you to track back to a couple of our early episodes, probably around episode 50 onwards. It's a really good starting point to see how we've been able to pivot and transition specifically from our more science-specific texts to more generalized approaches and sharing the applicability on how you can apply these different metrics, if you like, into your game to progress towards that top 10 tennis ranking. This season, so the beginning of the 2024 calendar year, we've taken a little bit of a pivot in respect to narrowing in on the latest results. So Indian Wells, we know, just wrapped up and Miami now is underway. And that's just one of many examples of how we've been tracking and pacing these episodes on Beyond Top 10 Tennis to really give those real world, real data insights almost live, as live as you can get when looking at cumulative results over a set period of time. A lot of my work is based on extensive data research, varying implications, and longitudinal analysis have played a very big part. So what I mean by that is it's not just over, say, a 6-month period. We're looking everywhere or anywhere from that 12-year time frame, sometimes longer. And by doing that, it's a first of its kind that has been done worldwide. Especially as far as tennis and the scientific community is concerned. And by pulling out all this data, that has gotten us to a place where we can leverage predictive analytics, for example, to share and showcase what is attributed to a top 10 tennis player. And again, if you are familiar and you have been listening with us for some time now, if you have read a variety of my books, I think more importantly, my latest release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, you understand the power of that data and how we've able to pinpoint, for example, Swiatek before she won her maiden championship, Osaka beforehand, and also how she was positioned to win that second, third, fourth Grand Slam, Alcaraz's ascension to the top, why Federer, Nadal to Djokovic were the top three, how Murray to Wawrinka to Del Potro even were able to break through to win their respective slams whilst those top three reigned. And more so, I think, and most excitingly, why Djokovic is still active and in play. And also, of course, Serena, why she was able to achieve such feats at that time. And I think it's incredibly relevant to also mention the likes of Kerber, Wozniacki, and now Halep back in action, and how all three of those players were able to ascend to the number one in the world. What's changed between then and now when we're looking at the different metrics. And I think, but before we jump into the rankings, a really good, I think, summary in that respect is data these days, so in the last couple of years, has become more commonplace in or across the tennis landscape, more specifically at the elite level of play, so when we're looking at top 20 and beyond on tour. But these metrics are more so concerned with performance outcomes or their specific results, looking at player weak points, etc. And some players use them to their advantage, others aren't as interested in them. But I really want to underscore that this data is very different. So it takes a new form, a new shape. And what this does, it's the new technical parameters, inferences that a player can control in their own game. And by integrating these key metrics into a player's game, irrespective of their opponent, these are the 7 keys and the 8th key, more recently, that is responsible for those top 10 tennis rankings. So essentially, you are in control. Irrespective of what your opponent is doing, it empowers the player to be in control and is directly correlated with that top 10 tennis ranking. Granted, at this level of play, it's expected, it's a given that certain variances and metrics are in play already to ascend to these heights. And we touch on that throughout, I guess, the other 10 techs prior to how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking. But more so, and I really want to emphasize this, is that we've got I'm Your Tennis Coaching Guru, which is the 10 years of play towards that 20 years of play. And if you're following that pathway, the long game, that cycle, you're integrating all these different metrics into your game. You're leveraging the data in the science of elite performance. You're applying that into your game over that set period of time. And how the latest release then comes in, how those 8 keys come in, is that you control your own game, your own metrics, and the distinct technical parameters correlate not only with that top 10 tennis ranking and Grand Slam championship success. So that's really exciting, and I wanted to start, I think, with that, because I think each and every episode I like to take a different take or share more so you get a better grasp and understanding of the data, because I think it is misconstrued a lot or misunderstood, and how powerful it can be. And who would have thought by reading, I guess, what is required, how it directly helps your game. And why that's the case is that instead of myself personally working with individual players, essentially there's only one of me and there's many of you. And I thought, how can I help more than 1, 2, 3 at a given time progress towards that top 10 tennis ranking? Is, of course, first I need to do the hard work and figure all that out. And that's where that longitudinal analysis over the last 12 years, it's a constant data collection process, vigorous investigation, research, all of those buzzwords. But how unraveling that and the number of players, coaches, parents I've spoken with over the years, how I can best help is putting that into words, putting that research, those outcomes into more simple terms that you can directly apply into your game. So whether your ranking is 80 in the world on tour, top 20 in the world on tour, you maybe you're top 10 already on tour, these metrics are built to serve you, to help you progress to that next peak performance parameter. But also, if you are at a local academy, club, you're in that first initial 10 years of play with your heights, your aspirations set on becoming a professional tennis player, it's also built for you, to show you and to almost hold your hand, in a manner of speaking, to progress you towards that top 10 tennis ranking over a set period of time. So obviously there are different starting points, different levels of applicability for some of those earlier texts, and then more so the later texts are really fine-tuning top 20, top 10 results and what it really takes, and how we've designed it also to track backwards to that developmental high performance landscape, but then track forwards to not just a top 10 tennis ranking, but how to win that first Grand Slam to multiple Grand Slams. And it's really important, I think, to underscore how all of this is backed by data and science. So it has scientifically been proven and statistically significant, it's termed. But all right, that's enough of that, I think, for today's episode. So I really want to focus on the ranking movers, because recall last episode, Indian Wells was full on underway. We're up to the round of 16, so we're going to kick off from the round of 16 onwards before we progress to the earlier rounds, the initial qualifying rounds, the first rounds of Miami. There's only a handful that have been done, or let's say half at this stage. But more so since the rankings are of concern, it's been 2 weeks since there was an update. So last week the rankings were not updated on either tour. So we've got some newcomers, some movers, and we've got some obviously key progressions, but also regressions. So I'm going to pull out a couple of players to begin with until we get to none. All right, I want to kick off with Maria Timofeeva. She's 99 in the world, so she's cracked the top 100. This is very good, because she's been having some relatively steady performances, a little bit earlier rounds, but this is a healthy metric. Cornet's back into the top 100. It seems like she's been around for some time now, but she's only still 34 years of age, but she is back inside the top 100 at 98, and I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that she has either been inside the top 10 briefly, or we definitely know she's been inside the top 20 for a number of years before she had that regression. Always a dark horse, particularly at, I want to say, Roland Garros and the Australian Open, but not so much the last couple of years. But I think it goes without saying that she has that capacity, but let's see if it's too late in her career to find that form again. Erica Ondreeva, she only a few weeks ago cracked into the top 100, and now she's progressing. She's up 4 places to 94. A very good metric, 19 years of age, the older sister of Maria, who's gotten a lot of hype since, I think, the Australian Open, 16 years of age. So it's really good to see her sister progressing. But what we're looking for here is steady and progressive results. Now, if she keeps that up in the next, I would say, 2 seasons, she will move ahead of her sister, depending on this rate of progression. You've heard me in the past use terms from rapid fire results. Now, if we progress too soon, it's not a good thing. Injuries can happen. Maria's dealing with one, I believe, at this stage. I think it was a tendonitis of some sort. And so it's not surprising, because she's had a very full schedule. Erica, however, I'm sure she's had a very similar schedule. I don't have that obviously in front of me. But when we're looking at progressions, hers have been a lot slower. So they've been paced at a slower rate in contrast to her younger sister. And that's actually a good thing. There is no necessarily right or wrong if they're managed, but what we're looking at here is mitigating injuries. And so this is a good pace. However, too much too soon, you have an increasing likelihood for that onset of injury, which is really underscored by, unfortunately, Marie-Andrée being sidelined at this stage. Not too sure how long, but one of, I think, very good examples is Emma Raducanu, progressing rapid fire by all means to claim that US Open Championship a few seasons ago now, and how she's been sidelined a lot since her recent withdrawal from Miami, for example. She was able to progress slightly, I think, at Indian Wells, put up a good result. However, it really has been touch and go for her, and again, that's not surprising because the conditioning required to get to that level and to maintain that level, too much too soon, too much pressure on the body. So for all I think the younger players listening out there, and your coaches to parents, you do not need to be a top 10 player in your teens. It looks like there are more teen progressions on the ATP Tour at this stage over the WTA Tour that are not being sidelined, but this is a very interesting concept. So I'm not going to dive into it too much, but it's the whole estrogen, testosterone, muscle mass, etc. And if a male's body is able to equip themselves with more muscle in contrast to a female's body at that age, which is more so the case, they are at an advantage in that respect, being able to protect those potential ailments. However, the smaller joints of your body, to those ligaments, whether you're looking at wrists, knees, ankles, and if there's a roll or too much flexion, extension, etc. of those joints, they're almost equally as susceptible. However, when you are still going through that developmental stage, even if you're at that later half in your late teenage years, you are more vulnerable, and it really needs to be more carefully managed. And I think that's why we see more female players on the WTA Tour at a younger age at a disadvantage in this respect, in contrast to the ATP Tour. However, we do see more, I think, male players later on in their career having those smaller injuries. I think Del Potro is the perfect example, and later on in their career, Federer, Nadal, for example. And obviously there are many others, but we're looking at load and that management and looking after the body as a whole. That's another topic, but I just want to chime in there. All right, let's track forwards. Kayla Day's up too, so she's at 86. And I only mention that because she's had some steady results recently, and she has been making, I want to say, more appearances, so much so that she's not necessarily on the radar, but we have had touch points where Day's been mentioned and different metrics, insights, in I think our more recent episodes in those earlier rounds. Badosa surprisingly has regressed, so she's at 80 now. She's regressed 7 places. It looks like, however, and we will get into Miami, that this should be good for her ranking, and we will see that, I think, track back to where she was. Other movers that we've got, we're moving forward now. Putintseva, she's at 68, up 11 places, 29-year-old from Kazakhstan. That's a very good jump, but we know with the outcomes of, I guess, the past fortnight and those results, that this is incredibly deserving. Peyton Stearns, she's regressed a little bit, 67 now in the world. Yafan Wang, 64, she's up 2 places. Big fan of her. Going back, and I've mentioned this number of times, from her performance at the Australian Open against Zheng, going down in that incredible tiebreak. Schneider's up to 62, that's 12 jumps. She's already won a title this season, and she's also, I believe, made a final. And so today's result that she's had against Venus is not surprising in 19 years of age. So irrespective that she was not on the radar after the Australian Open, she's really starting to pivot towards that, given her results so far this season. Kenan, she's at 58. She's regressed 3 places. Rus, she's regressed 9 places to 57. Other players, as we progress forward, Collins is up 3 places to 53. And I've said this multiple times before that we know Collins is a top 20 player. Cocchiaretto, the 23-year-old Italian, she's up 9 places to 51. And we know the past week has been exceptional for her. I believe she just claimed her first title. Dollenheid's up 1 place, 50 in the world. Tracking a lot more quicker now, forwards. Let's get into the 30s. Up 12 places to 37 is Yu Yuan, the 25-year-old from China. And I think it has really been quite the season for all the last 2 for Chinese tennis, because I think this has to be the first time we've seen this many Chinese women inside the top 100. That's exceptional. Mira Andreeva, she's at 38 in the world, 16 again years of age, and so she's hovering there. She's steady, which is good. All right, Fernandez regressed slightly to 35. Vekic is up 2 places to 34. Yastremska, slight regression, 33. She has been hovering around this ranking range since her performance at the Australian Open. Noskova has regressed. She was inside the top 20. She's at 31 now, back 2 places. 19-year-old had a very good Australian Open that placed her on the radar. I'm very interested to see how she goes this week and next, obviously, in Miami. Boulder's slight regression, but she's 30 in the world. Hoping she can keep that result, that ranking around that range, given her performance at San Diego, so she can build on that. Potapova's up 4 places, 29 in the world, 22 years of age. Kostyuk, after she had a very good week in Indian Wells, that's how I'd say her next peak performance. So she's up inside the top 30 now. I think this is the first time she has been inside the top 30. 26 in the world, and again, let's remember she's 21 years of age and going on from that Australian Open performance. And I think from memory, Yastremska went 1 further than Kostyuk. However, Kostyuk is the one who's being able to get that edge, and again over Noskova as well. The only other one that's a standout from the Australian Open is Paolini, who's progressed, we know, closer towards the top 10, and Kalinskaya as well, and she's just right in front of Kostyuk at 25, so she's holding steady on her ranking there. So stayers, she's regressed just 2 to 24. Kvitova, we haven't seen much of her in action. She's back 5 points to 23. Pavlyuchenkova up 2 places to 22. And she's been having a very consistent season. I think at the beginning of the season, she was around in the early 30s in the world. And she's literally on the cusp now of cracking back into the top 20. Recall a handful of our past episodes, how I've pinpointed Pavlyuchenkova to break into the top 20 again, and lo and behold, she is on the threshold of breaking in. So I absolutely love it when the data is right and pinpoints these let's say indicators. Navarro, the 22-year-old American, 20 in the world. She is at a career high and has been progressing. Before I started today's episode, I did a little bit of, let's say, a back check of her and how that past, let's say, 18 months has unfolded. So those who are not so much familiar, she has actually had a steady rise. I think a year ago she was around 150 in the world, and she's steadily been tracking. And Navarro is the perfect example that if you start integrating the 7 keys into your game steadily and progressively, within the space of 12 months, this can happen. Typically, we want to give that 18-month window so it's a very steady progression in contrast to rapid fire. This falls somewhat in between. Now, if you're not familiar with the markers of the long game, head on over to AIM International and look up the long game. it's one of those tabs there, and then head on over to the pathway, because it really showcases the typical time frames if it's very progressive. And when it's progressive, it means there's a higher likelihood you're going to maintain that ranking range, in contrast to the rapid fire placements. However, that's not to say those rapid fire placements will regress. They just need to maintain that level. And for some players, Alcaraz is the perfect example. It's more readily being able to maintain. Progressive golf is a perfect example, where she started very well at Wimbledon a couple of years ago at 16 years of age, and give her that 3 to 4 year time frame, bam, top between 10 in the world and Grand Slam champion, as our data pinpointed. However, rapid fire it can be done, but it's not the rule, and it's really important to understand. Keys back inside the top 20, 18 in the world. Svitolina's steady at 16. Very interested to see how she's going to go in Miami, given that Indian Wells, she was the one, she did fall to Navarro, and I think that was Navarro's breakthrough match. Paolini, she's at 14, so she's holding strong there. Haddad Mayer holding at 13. Mukova's back 1 to 12. Kasatkina's up 1 to 11. So again, on the threshold of breaking into the top 10, which has been pinpointed again over the last couple of episodes. It's looking like Vondrasova, not too sure. She's regressed just 1 point to 8. Zhang has progressed surprisingly to 7, despite I think her recent performances. But typically, let's see how Zhang's metrics line up. She will potentially regress outside the top 10. However, since she did make the finals of the Australian Open, points wise, she is quite a chunk, I'd say, ahead of Ostapenko and then Kasatkina respectively. So there is quite a gap when we're looking at those points, but when we're looking at performance, consistency, and that application, there are a number of top 10 players who are on the cusp of regressing, if not for those ranking points that they're able to hold on to. That said, Sabalenka and Swiatek are holding their own, likewise with Gauff and Rybakina. So that's obviously 1, 2, 3, 4. Pagulas as well to notch off that top 5. Sakari is at number 9. It'll be very interesting to see the rankings when they come out next week again, to see if they reflect Sakari's finalist result at Indian Wells. So that's definitely one to watch. Unfortunately, Vondrasova did withdraw from Indian Wells for personal reasons, so that's why I'm not surprised at that. Just a little bit of a regression there, but when we're looking at the ranking differences and the points between 7 and 8, it is not too much. Okay, that wraps up all of the rankings on the WTA Tour. Let's dive into the round of 16 Indian Wells, and let's try and go through this as quick as I can, but with detail. Swiatek, round of 16, Putintseva, so 6-1, 6-2. So I touched on Putinceva's rankings progression. My apologies for the pronunciation, but this really underscores why, because making the round of 16 at Indian Wells is a big deal. Swiatek, however, too good. 6-1, 6-2. Kerber Wozniacki, I was really looking forward to this. Recall last week's episode, this match was actually live underway whilst it was being recorded. So I was a little bit distracted in that respect. I had one eye on the screen because I was really looking forward to this. I was hoping it would go to 3. However, I have to say, this has to be Wozniacki's best match since she's found her form again. And this was very good. So it really, I think, brought my attention because her other matches until now were not, let's say, fall off your seat quality. Kerber did have some very good matches early in the season, and I've touched on that previously. All right, Paolini and Potapova in the round of 16. Potapova, she got the win in 3 sets. Paolini took the second set 6-love, Potapova third set 6-3. Pavlyuchenko and Kostyuk, round of 16. Kostyuk, this was a very good win for her, 6-4, 6-1. But I also think Pavlyuchenko at round of 16 Indian Wells was really good as well, and why both have had their respective progressions. Yuan with her progression as well over Kazatkina, 3 sets, very good. Mertens Golf was the other side of the round of 16, 6-love, 6-2. That was a brutal performance from Golf, all good things. Sakari over Parry, 3 sets. Navarro Sabalenka, Navarro got the win, best win of her career. She was rewarded with that top 20 breakthrough, 3 sets, very solid. All right, that's followed by, however, Sakari into the quarterfinals against Navarro, 3 sets. So congratulations to Navarro to take Sakari to 3 sets, because this is what I've been waiting for Sakari to really break through again after just briefly regressing outside the top 10, back inside the top 10. A couple of changes, obviously, with that coaching team, splitting with that long-time coach, but this is what I really was anticipating, waiting for Sakari to make that move. We will get there shortly. Golf over Yuan in the quarterfinals, 4-3. Quarterfinals, Kostyuk over Potapova, and this is why Kostyuk has had such a impressive ranking progression, 6-love, 7-5. And this is a very good one. Swiatek, Wozniacki. I have to say, for Wozniacki to take Swiatek, first set 6-4, obviously to Swiatek, but the score line is tight. So it really showcases Wozniacki really has been able to come back in a manner to really hold her own. Very good. Obviously that she did retire second set, so Swiatek going through. Okay, semi-finals, Kostyuk was no match for Swiatek, and I think this really underscores how powerful Swiatek is and why she's so deserving of that number 1 ranking, 6-2, 6-1. Other side of the semi-finals was Golf and Sakari, and obviously Golf was the favourite here, but Sakari, she really lifted her game. Second set went to Golf in a tiebreaker. That's tough, and it was 5. And then 6-2 in that third set. So mentally for Sakari to keep that going and to gain the edge in the third set was really good of her. All right, now we make the final, and I think it goes without saying Swiatek had an absolutely sensational performance. But that first set, 6-4, Sakari was able to hold her own, but come on, 6-love, second set. Sakari's been playing really well and top 10 player. Both these players top 10, and I've touched on this before, why there is such a gap between some top 10 players and others. And at this stage, arguably, Swiatek is miles ahead of other top 10 players. The other two that edge Swiatek really closely is Sabalenka's up there and Golf. Sakari was almost able to hold her own, but these are the two. Rybakina when she's in form, but Swiatek has been able to maintain that rate of application and that consistency, and that's what counts, and that is what the 8 keys give you. It's not that fluctuating performance, it's giving you how to hold your own inside the top 10, and if you're not inside the top 10, how to learn those 8 keys, integrate them into your game, steadily progress towards the top 10, and then hold your own. Okay, I was a bit excited about that, and I've been waiting all week to share. Okay, now we're on to Charleston. It was underway, I think, around the same time. Obviously, it's squeezed in between, I think, Indian Wells and Miami, but I wanted to, I think, mention a couple of players here. Qualifying, just some noteworthy, players to move through. Ondreeva, again, with her breakthrough into the the top 100, she got through qualifying. I think that was the main player I want to touch on, and Taylor Preston, the Aussie who has been progressing ahead, which is really exciting to see. She got a qualifying win against Watson in 3 sets, first round of qualifying. Second round of qualifying, Gadecki, another Aussie, threw in straight sets. Preston, however, fell to Basols Ribera in 3 sets. Andreeva did get through against Kichinok 1 and 4. So when we're looking at the main draw, round of 32 it starts with. Okay, so we've got Wang progressing straight sets over Hotama. Andreeva, she did get that win first round, which really underscores again that ranking progression. Schneider, very good win, 2 and 4. Kessler, 3 sets. Cocchiaretto, 2 sets over Rodinova. Cornet did fall to Basols Ribera. Doden, straight sets over Sieg. Wickmayer over Irani in 2 sets, 3 and 2. Dart in 3 sets over Hibino, and then Gadecki fell to Christian in 3 sets. All right, moving on to day 2, round of 16. Irani fell to Wang, straight sets. Schneider through over Christian, straight sets. Doden over Trevistan, 3 sets. Masarova over Bektas, straight sets. Kessler, Rakimova, straight sets. Cocchiaretto over Basols Ribera, straight sets. Andreeva over Hibino, 3 tight sets. Tie break in the second. And then we've got Minen over Sasnovich, straight sets. And I am trying to go quick for good reason. All right, quarterfinals, Andreeva over Wang. No, Wang 6-2, 6-4, which was a very good, I think, for Wang. And she's had that recent ranking progression. But well done to Andreeva. Okay, Schneider over Doden, straight sets. Cocchiaretto over Kessler, straight sets. And Minen over Masarova, 3 sets. Tie break in that first set. Okay, semi-finals, Schneider, 3 sets over Wang. Oh, this was good. 3-6, 6-3, 6-3. And then Cocchiaretto over Minen, though, 7-6, 6-1. And I think that scoreline really says it all for Cocchiaretto, because she did have her breakthrough win over Schneider, even though she was seated above at 4 over Schneider, who was 7 respectively. 6-3, 6-2. And I think that's really exciting to see both of these players leveling up and progressing through, because they have had a relatively very good start to the season. Of course, not at the level of Indian Wells, but both of these players now are tied with those titles apiece this season. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more of Cocchiaretto and Schneider. They've both respectively been progressing in the rankings, which means come time for Roland Garros, when we're looking at players who have steadily been progressing, it's going to be a very good indicator to see if they can still deliver and maintain their current level of play. Okay, let's head over to Miami. I've been waiting for this. I really want to touch on first a couple of the qualifying rounds. So we've got 2 rounds here to touch on. Hunter, 3 sets over Cornet. That's actually a very good win for her. 7-6, 2-6, 6-4. Wickmayer, good win over Parks, 4 and 4. Dart, the British, 6-2, 6-3 over Koki. Schmidlova, Donda, 3 and 2. Townsend over Pigossi, 6-4, 6-4. So it's actually a very good win, I'd say, for Townsend. She has been tracking forwards this season steadily, I would say. Timofeeva, so remember her ranking progression here, over Basols Ribera, 1 and 2 in qualifying. Right, a couple of the other matches to touch on, just tracking through them. Torsen over Zidansek, 4 and 3. Fun fact here, Zidansek a few seasons ago was on the radar, had a breakthrough season at the Australian Open. I think it was a round of 16, potentially quarterfinal result. I think a round of 16 from memory, either at the Australian Open or Roland Garros, one of the two. And this is a few seasons ago, so again, the data's not in front of me. But she was being tracked. Her ranking was progressing closer towards, at that stage, I think the top 30. However, over the last, I want to say 2-3 seasons, she has steadily been regressing back, so she hasn't found that form. And there's a very good, I think, example of a peak performance cycle, and if that's being able to maintain, if those 8 keys are integrated into a player's game or not. If there's only 1, 2 or 3, there's obviously a higher chance to regress. If you have that 7 and ideally 8 integrated into your game, you're going to hold on to that top 10 tennis ranking. Even for top 10 players, you are susceptible. They are susceptible to regressing, and that's why we see that 2% every season as a minimum, as a baseline, regress outside the top 10 because of this. So it really underscores, I think, how hard it is to maintain that ranking when we're looking at those 8 keys, but more so why some players are more susceptible than others. Mine, and touching off from Charleston through qualifying 1 and 4 over Heisei, Volyanets over Zazua, my apologies, in 3 sets. Irani fell first round to Ayla. And Day, that we've touched on earlier in the rankings, she did fall to Arango in 3 sets. Watson, she did fall first round of qualifying over Doden, again 3 sets. I think that really wraps up, I think, the first day of qualifying. So we look and move on to the second day of qualifying. Dart fell to Carla in 3 sets. Minen fell to Liu in 2 sets. Pera, she fell to Krunik in 2 sets. Seigman, she got through in 2 sets over Senastasia. My apologies, I've done my best to pronounce that. Townsend got a win over Bektas in 3 sets. Hunter over Naimana in 2 sets. Wickmayer fell to Volyanet. Shmedalova, first seed in qualifying, she did get the win in 3 sets over Shmankova. Torsen over Dodden in 2 sets. And Timofeeva, again with that ranking progression over Korpach, 2 sets, 2 and 1, which brings us to the first round that really only wrapped up, I want to say 1-2 hours ago before we went live today with this recording. So I think it's time to dive into those first round results, or what has so far been played out. So first off, we've got Parry with the win over Christian, 7-6, 6-2. The match I'm sure most of us were waiting for, and on the edges of our seat for, was Halep over Badosa. I got a bit excited here. 6-1 to Halep first set, but all credit to Badosa. 6-4, 6-3 the following 2. So she got the win. But I tell you what, for Halep to get 6-1 over Badosa, I'm going to say Badosa was playing probably one of her best performances we've seen in a while, because 4-3 over Halep, even though she obviously has been away from tour. I think from memory it's been around 18-ish months. That's a very good win. I'm really looking forward to seeing how far Badosa progresses, to see if we can use that as some type of a baseline to really ascertain where Halep is at. But that's not necessarily always a very good indicator, because it depends on obviously Badosa's next opponent's level. But it's really good to see Halep back, and in 3 sets, that's a relatively very good result. And 4-3 really indicates potentially only a break apiece in both of those sets, irrespective how obviously that played out. Townsend came through qualifying, and very good win over Bronzetti in 3 sets. Seigman again through qualifying, 3 sets over Krunik. Stearns over Wang, 2 sets, very good win. Saville got a good win over Zhang in 3 sets. Putintseva, 3 sets. So really, I think building on that ranking progression, Shmedalova went down to Wang. Wozniacki over Burrell, 6-1, 6-4. That's a stellar win for Wozniacki. So she's really picking up from Indian Wells. Let's see how far she can go here. Because again, even though she didn't get the result I think she was after at the Australian Open, she's really starting to find her ground. It's very interesting. And also likewise for Kerber to see how she goes this tournament. Williams over Schneider. Schneider got the win 6-3, 6-3. But let's remember how much she has been progressing. So it's not that surprising. And we know Venus is not at a peak level. But look, to be able to still be in first round and put up a fight, I mean, it's, again, I've said this a few episodes ago, it's great to see Venus still in action. Yuan with a win over Blinkova, straight sets. Serenko over Lynette, 3 sets. Frutovova over Karl, straight sets. Sydney Hope over Bogdan, straight sets. Dolhide went down to Torsen, 3 sets. And Wang got the win over Bastis. That really wraps up all the matches that have been underway at Miami so far. So I'm really looking forward to, I think, the other side playing out and to see who gets to go as deep. And we can look at any contrasting performances, correlations, particularly with Indian Wells, since these two are back-to-back events. Okay, let's move on to the ATP Tour. Tracking back first and foremost on those rankings. So let's have a look at the top 100 before we look at Indian Wells and Miami respectively. Roberto Bautista Agut, sitting at 100. He's had a slight regression, but we know Bautista Agut has been ranked inside the top 10. He's now 35 years of age, and he definitely looks like he is regressing that level of performance. However, still great to see him back in action. Nagal, the Indian player, 26 years of age, he did slip outside the top 100 briefly after progressing inside the top 100 briefly a few weeks ago, but he's now back inside at 97. A very big jump to Luca Nardi. We know the result he had over Djokovic at Indian Wells, up 27 places. It's huge for him. 20 years of age, he's now at 96. So it's going to be very interesting to see if he's able to build on that, if that was just a one-off peak performance, or if he can steadily progress. And I think in contrast to the rapid fire progressions, what we're looking for Nardi is to gradually over the next, I would say 3 to 6 months, build that result towards the top 50. So we're looking at progressive, and then end the season around top 40, breakthrough potentially at the Australian Open or this time next year to be inside the top 30. And then when we're looking at, I think the rankings and correlations in this respect, this time next year, top 20 is definitely on the cards. And that's what we're looking at, maintaining a level of play and building those peak performance cycles, then a new baseline, then peak performance cycles, then a new baseline. If that's really confusing you, track back to those early episodes. That's why I really encourage listening to a few, because sometimes I will dive into things a little bit more technical, and because that's just the nature, I think, of the game, to really nudge you closer and close towards that top 10 tennis ranking. We do need to, I think, get a little bit technical at times. Dominic Thiem's holding his own at 90. He's up actually one ranking point. Hugo Gaston, slight regression, is at 89. Fucsovic, he's regressed 12 points to 86. Fucsovic, a fun fact here, even though he's 32 years of age, he was on the radar a few seasons ago. So much so he's actually featured in the What Is Your Game Missing series, one or if not more, because of his progressions. Now, I believe he has made a round of 16 result previously. Not too sure where and or who he was up against to achieve that, I think, that feat. But he has unfortunately been regressing as of late. Wawrinka has regressed 13 plays, so he's back to 83. We're tracking forward. So I'm doing this live with you. Vandy Schulp's up 5 places, 277. Thiago Seaboth Wild, he's regressed 11 points to 76. Now, Wild's been a little bit on the radar because he's been progressing in those earlier rounds of the smaller events. But when we're looking at, let's say, the bigger events, those peak performance cycles have not been able to, let's say, withhold. Kazook's is up 3 places to 74. We're looking at this. This is a very good metric for him. Be good to see him track closer towards 50, let's say towards the end of the season, if he's able to maintain his current level of play and find a new baseline that I've just touched on briefly earlier. Purcell's up 3, the Aussie, to 68, and O'Donnell, another Aussie's holding at 66, and Vukic, another Aussie's up 4 places to 65. Very good for Australian tennis, and De Minaur obviously is leading the charge at 10 in the world. Murray's he's holding steady. He's regressed just 1 point to 62. Other, I think, notable players as we're moving closer and closer towards the top 10. So we're now inside the top 50. We've got Monfils, who's back inside the top 50. He's up 7 places to 47. Others, we got the Aussie Poprin, slight regression, 4 points to 45. Draper's back 5 places to 42. Evans is up 2, so he's at 43. Those two Brits are back to back. Others, we've got Arnali's up 2 to 38. Felix, he's back. He's at Ogor Olisame's 5 places to 36. Still kind of holding his own. Let's remember he's only 23 years of age. He has been ranked inside the top 10. Last 18 months to 2 season has had that quite drastic regression from the top 10. He hasn't quite been able to deliver the same baseline. Really, I think pinpointing here, he needs to integrate more of the keys into his game until all of them are back in his game, which is not the case, obviously, as of late. Thompson, another Aussie, he's holding around 34. Coric is up to 33. Eubank, slight regression, 32. I think after a lot of the noise he made last season, we're not quite seeing, I think, that same level of play. All right, inside the top 30, Mazzetti's up 2 places to 24. He hasn't been, let's say, those results this season haven't been as pronounced. Nothing really that stand out. But he has been on the radar last season, so it's going to be interesting to see how he tracks. If he's able to, I think, get more wins back to back or not to break into the top 20, but he's definitely not one of those players who has steadily been progressing. Manarino's up 1 to 20, looking at sitting on the threshold there because he's had a very good start to his season. Baez holding strong at 19. And Bublik at 18, up 2 places. All 3 of those places had a very good season today. Shelton's back 1, 17. Kakanakov back 1, 16. Humbert back 1 at 15. Paul is the one up 3 at 14. We know his results that he had at Indian Wells. Fritz is back 1 at 13. Dimitrov's up at 12. Tsitsipas is holding his own at 11. Now he's up a number of ranking points ahead of Dimitrov and Fritz. Both of them, ironically, are on the similar ranking points. However, Fritz has played 1 more tournament, so that obviously showcases that ranking difference there. All right, top 10 players. Everyone's been holding their own inside the top 10, but there has been a little bit of shuffling going on. Hercax is back to 9. Rudd is up to 8. Rublev is back at 6, but Zverev is back at 5. So a bit of a shuffling there, very similar ranking points, and dare I say Miami is going to be one to watch in respect to rankings, and probably we're going to see a little bit more shuffling, but we'll have to hold off until obviously Miami wraps up. All right, this brings us over to, I think, Indian Wells. So round of 16 to touch off or to move on from last week. And we've just mentioned him, Paul over Nardi. And we've also touched on Nardi's, I think, stellar results that obviously he had previously over Djokovic in the 3rd round. But that's a very good result nonetheless. It's still 4-3, but Paul had a very very solid tournament. Rudd, very good win over Monfils, 3 sets, and again, round of 16. Medvedev, 4-4 over Dimitrov. High quality going on here. Rune got the win over Fritz, 3 sets, a tiebreak in the second. Tsitsipas went down to Lecheka, 6-2, 6-4. I really have tried to pronounce that correctly. My apologies if I have not. Sinner, a good win over Charleston, a little bit brutal, 7-6, and then he ran away with 6-1 in the second. I think that really underscores the differences between Sinner's level of play and Charleston, even though obviously there's a lot of noise around him. He has a very powerful game, but gee, Sinner knows how to just pick it up a notch. Zverev got the win over de Minaur in 3 sets, 5-7, 6-2, 6-3. This is a little bit surprising, but it really shows that Zverev, I think he amped up that level. Alcaraz over Marazon, 6-3, 6-2. All right, that brings us to the quarterfinals. And here we've got Paul with a very good win over Rudd, 6-2, 1-6, 6-3. Really, I think, underscoring Paul's recent ranking progression there. Medvedev over Rune, a very good win, 5-4. Sinner over Lecheka, 3-3. Alcaraz over Zverev, this one's a brutal 6-3, 6-1. And look, when we're looking at number 2 in the world against, number 6, but now number 5 in the world, Zverev, look at that scoreline and the discrepancies that would have unveiled throughout that match. That's a very good win for Alcaraz. And I think when we're looking at, the semi-final stage, Paul really did hold his own against Medvedev for those first 2 sets. 1-6 and then 7-6 second set. Very close for Medvedev, 6-2 with that win. But that has to be one of the best scorelines matches I've seen Paul play. That really, I think, highlights how deserving he is to track closer towards the top 10. This match was wow. Alcaraz, Sinner, I'm sure everyone was waiting for it, but that scoreline, 6-1 over Alcaraz's first set, not so surprising, and then 6-3 Alcaraz back in the second, but it's the third set Alcaraz, 6-2 over Sinner is a little bit surprising. That shows that Alcaraz really lifted his game up a notch. And then in the final, look at this, tiebreak. I think that's not surprising. And granted that we've got 2 and 4 in the world, 7-6, and look, 6-1. That really, I think, highlights how far Alcaraz has been able to come, but to really run it home in that respect. Okay, over to Miami. The main draw, or the first round, is not underway as we're going live today. But we can touch on the earlier qualifying rounds, which we're going to wrap up today's episode on. Seyboth Wild, who I've touched on previously, number 1 seed, ironically, in qualifying 4-2 for very good reason. Kokkinakis fell to Greiner 4, and then there must have been a retirement because it stopped at 4-1. Nishioka over Ymer, straight sets. Navarra over Hallius, straight sets. Kazuks, good win, almost 3 sets. Mayo got the win over Kazuks, so it's a very good win for Mayotte there, the Frenchman. But so both of them there, he was the 3rd seed. So let's have a look to see how Mayotte tracks, because he did in the second round of qualifying, trying not to get too ahead of myself here, he did 7-6, 6-2 over Goffin, a very good win for him. All right, Goffin, first round qualifying, did get through, yes. Nardi lost to Menzik 4-2. So when we're looking at Indian Wells now to Miami, Nardi was not able to maintain that level of play. Granted, Menzik is a higher quality in respect to rankings. However, we know Menzik's had a relatively good season, but Nardi, obviously, after that win against Djokovic, the world's his oyster, but he wasn't able to maintain that peak performance. So that's a very interesting metric that we look out for. Okay, Klein over Pair. Other notable matches, we've got Schwartzman got a win over Svajda. I'm going to spell it Svajda, 6376. Okay, Gaston fell to Wong, a wild card here, 3 sets. Nagal got a very good win, first round of qualifying, 7-6, 6-2 over Diallo. Garin, the Chilean, fell to Vachero, 3 and 4. Other notable matches as we track through, the Aussie Walton got a very good win there, 3 sets over Monteiro. And a couple of matches, so I'm skimming over a number of these. And then we've got Wolf, 11th seed here. He got a win over Spirituri. My apologies there. 3 and 5. I'm not too sure if that's just the Australian accent with the pronunciation, but either way, I really do apologise for that. Bautista Agut, he got a win there, 7-6, 6-4. So that's very good for him. So remember, he's ranked around 100 in the world. All right, second round of qualifying, Bautista Agut did get the win, 3 sets there. Wolf fell to Kopriva in 3 sets, second round of qualifying. Nakashima, 1-1. I'm going to guess this was a walkover there or a retirement from at May. Not too sure what's happened there, but a good win for Nakashima. Other notable wins to get through in the second round is that Aussie Walton did get through over Martinez, 3 sets, the 8th seed. Nagal lost to Wong in 3 sets in that second round. So when we're looking at Nagal's progressions and or regressions back inside the top 100, we're looking for those qualifying breakthroughs to get into the main draw. Schwartzman, 3 sets over Ridderneck. So that's a very good win for Schwartzman. Let's see how he goes our main round, main draw. We know Schwartzman's former top 10 player, and he has been able to go deep at the Grand Slam level, but what we've seen obviously the last few seasons is that regression. Menzies fell to Klein, straight sets. We've touched on Mayo got the win over Goffin in that second round. So 7-6, 6-2. And again, Mayo, very good performance after defeating Kazuks. Navarra over Nishioka, straight sets, and then Saboth Wild over Griner. And so that really, I think, wraps up, where we're at. All the main draw, that's going to get underway, I believe, tomorrow. And so that leaves a lot for us to go over in our next episode. Same with the WTA Tour, the other half of the first round. This really is, I think, the timing is wonderful, but it's going to be jam-packed. But Miami really, I think, serves as a very good benchmark when we're looking at that maintenance that we've touched on, different, I think, levels of performance, those peak performance metrics, and how we've touched on previously, establishing that new baseline, going from one peak performance to the next, putting in that work, integrating the 8 keys. Because when we're looking at, I think, the cross-section over, I think particularly, irrespective obviously of Charleston we've touched on, but when we're looking at the cross-section between Indian Wells and Miami, we're looking at the players who are able to maintain that level of play over an extended period of time, because both of these events are more than a week long. So if we narrow that down to that 3 to 4 week period where we're really expecting that high quality of play from the best players in the world, primarily the top 20 players, to see who's able to live up to that top 20 expectation. So that's round of 16 performance or more. And there's a little bit of a fluctuation there, because instead of saying the best 16 in the world, let's say top 20 and who's able to maintain, I think, their performance with that ranking. And we know not all of them, that's not the case. So when we're looking at those discrepancies, we know who's more vulnerable, susceptible to regressing. But also the players who are primed when they make those breakthrough performances, third round, round of 16, and they may be ranked 30 in the world, 50 in the world, etc. But if they're able to repeat a level of performance from, say, Indian Wells back to Miami, they've got our attention. Schneider, for example, we've touched on. Cocchiaretto, we've touched on with those performances. Nardi, we've touched on. And the differences there, whether they're progressions and or regressions, but they're very good key indicators to be conscious of when we need to integrate integrate the 7 keys. So we're starting to really notch up 3 to 4 of those keys that are solidified in our game. And when we're looking at top 20, solidifying keys, say 5, 6, 7, to progress towards the top 10. So we've got a number of players on the cusp of the top 10 who have been tracking really well this season. And we've already had our first barrier breakers on both tours this season, and who can maintain that. And it's really about bringing those last couple of keys home, solidifying them into your game, when specifically we're looking at developing and how to develop and achieve and maintain that top 10 tennis ranking. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope you, I think you like that roundup, but more so those additional insights shared from Indian Wells, Charleston for the WTA Tour, and obviously touching on the beginnings of Miami, they're not from both tours there. Typically, we didn't dive into one of my other books today, even though we've been previously focusing on the secrets to optimal coaching success. Today really was all about drawing out those additional insights from how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking and really applying them more so to Indian Wells and Miami respectively, and obviously Charleston in between. To grab your copy of my new release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, you can find it at AMA International or Amazon, irrespective where you're based in the world. For any comments or questions, head to AMA International or Topic Thread, the social platform set on data privacy. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, head on over to Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. To catch up on our blogs, head on over to AMA International and look for our blog tab, or head on over to Medium. And as always, I'll leave all the links in the episode notes. For something different, head on over to Pink Octopus Books. That's where my fictional release is. For something left of field, visit Spruik for some random polls. And of course, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above will be absolutely phenomenal. For those of you who are interested, we do have scholarships available on AMA International, as well as options to work with me exclusively to optimize your performance to nudge you closer towards that top 10 tennis ranking. This is really important when we're looking at those differences between Indian Wells, Miami, peak performances at the Australian Open, being able to maintain them for Roland Garros, or progressing inside the top 10, crossing that threshold, and or going on to win your maiden Grand Slam, or adding to that tally. I'm here to help. So don't be shy, come and say hi. On that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I am your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.